Welcome, everyone, as we catch up with Hemp Fusion, a company that many of you will be familiar with by now. There's been a lot going on with the stock over the last short while, and we'll be speaking with CEO Jason Mitchell to discuss the recent acquisition of Apothecanna, international sales heating up, an overview of their Q1 financials that recently just got released, and then also finishing off with discussing their recent share price movement and what near-term catalyst investors should be excited for. So again, to do that, we have Jason Mitchell. Welcome back, my good man.
Thank you very much for having me, man. Good to be back.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we just jump right into here, because you're that very recently you had a news release come out, and it's a big one as well. It's a very important acquisition, so we wanted to be able to speak on it. I'd like to start by discussing that acquisition of Apothecanna. I know you got to be very mindful when certain projections are said, but are you able to speak on what you aim to achieve with this combined entity in terms of revenue, but also creating synergies between Hemp Fusion and Apothecanna's sales and distribution network?
Absolutely. The acquisition of Apothecanna is something we've been working on since, early fall, late summer, last year. And it was really very strategic. I mean, our first acquisition was Provolone back in 2019. And this is our second, definitely won't be our last at all. But Apothecanna was very strategic. It opened up doors to new opportunities. We in a way said it's our sixth possible sales channel. To be in some different marketed stores that are not on our typical menu of stores and retailers that we're actually working with. But what's really interesting about them is that about half of their business is online. And as we've mentioned previously about Hemp Fusion, that during 2020, we analyzed that our business was roughly about 6% online. And at the end of Q1, we've modulated that now to have our business in Q1 2021 to be about almost 25% of our business being online now. So we've done a great deal of work there, but to acquire somebody that is heavily vested into direct to consumer, realizing these shifts was of great importance to us. Never mind the fact that they have roughly about 1,800 additional stores that we are not currently a part of, which a good majority of that's coming from CVS. So it's really just a really important strategic plan that we had to bolt them onto our organization. Now, it is a performance-based acquisition, so I can share some basic details about what these performance targets are because it's published, it's public knowledge. In fact, we set a target of between 6 and 8 million as their target in the first 12 months after acquisition. Now, currently, this acquisition doubles our revenue based on 2021 revenue. So now we've become twice the size of a company with targeted goals for them to hit between 6 and 8 million. And we are absolutely building this performance-based strategy so that we can empower them, one, financially and through important human capital resources to hit their goal, but to ultimately build an organization that we can all be excessively proud about and to give them every opportunity to grow like they've always wanted to. So we're very excited about this. I mean, it's just such an important detail. They have an amazing staff, amazing products, and it just fits so well with where we're heading. And it also opened up a new international market for us in Canada that we're currently not in. And so can't wait to talk more about that. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's perfect because it goes right into the second question I want to speak about, and that is in terms of international expansion and sales. You recently just announced a $200,000 purchase order by the United Arab Emirates because they've just decided to start opening up after a lot of places closed down from COVID. Can you speak a little bit more about that purchase order, but more specifically, how are international sales and expansion going at the moment?
Well, very interesting. While some might view a $200,000 order being small, this is a huge indication of what's happening. See, in 2020, the global community, especially in the Middle East, India, and other places, basically locked down. They shut down. Our largest international partner is in the UAE, and they all but just stopped ordering because they had to shift their medical and hospital operation to the triage and care of things surrounding COVID. And so that was a very important stall for them. Their clinic attached pharmacies were not actually having any foot traffic because they were on lockdown. So for a very large period of time, which affected our 2020 sales dramatically because they're a very large partner. Well, that being said, getting this PO to kick this off into 2021 is just such a warm, wonderful indication that things are starting to return back to a place of normalcy. And my communications with this partner has every indication of saying, we're getting back on track and things are going to start turning around from an international perspective, which couldn't make me more happy, because when I realized that a country is starting to sort this out and that people are becoming more secure about the safety of their environment, I think is really important, and that people are starting to trust coming back into the retail community and begin to participate as customers and getting the care that they need. So this is very encouraging on a bunch of different fronts. But this customer giving such a significant PO after such a long period of hold off is such a great indication for what's to come in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, speaking of 2021 and more specifically about Q1 2021, you just recently had your news, your financials that were released, and you had some strong metrics in there. 59% increase in your direct-to-consumer sales. You had overall cash position of 17 million, so you're very, very well cashed up. But it was also accompanied with a sharp increase in operating expenses and a decline in business-to-business sales. Can you speak about your company's performance in Q1 2021, and what are the main areas that you'd like to focus Hemp Fusion on the quarters to come?
Absolutely. So, what you had covered first was on the direct to consumer being 59% increase. To break that 59% number down, though, it's important to break it down. A 27% increase from our branded hosted websites and affiliates and social, but then it's a 96% increase on our platform-based direct to consumer, such as Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and is now including Tmall.com, which is Alibaba's Tmall. This is really important because when we recognize that we were not, as an organization, in the proper distribution of where our sales are coming from, because in the CBD marketplace, nearly half of the sales are coming from online, direct to consumer, traditionally, okay? And in probiotics, it's almost a third. Being as a company last year, we're roughly about 6% of our sales. So in quarter one alone, we have augmented our percentage breakdown of our revenues coming from about 25%, roughly about 25% of our sales are now online. That means we're a heck of a lot closer to reaching our goal of having 50% of our sales online. And we did this only starting these efforts in November, but using 2021 to plan appropriately. Now, the sharp rise in expenses, I can tell you very clearly, was a result of going public. There are things like D&O insurance and commissions and all these different, I love lawyers because when you need them, you love them. But, in a process of going publicly, you have probably more lawyers. I mean, lawyers have lawyers. I mean, it's just interesting of all the professional fees and auditors and, and outsourced sourcing of professional fees related to going public and all the filings and things of that nature. It was just a very expensive process, although a very necessary one, because it did give us an ability to access the capital markets from a fundraising perspective, but also increase our SEO and awareness. I mean, Brightfield data now has us as the #2 most recognized brand. And I think that does have in part something to do with us going public and becoming more known. So I would tell you that we are definitely heading in the right direction. And as I said in the earnings call, man, I cannot wait to talk about quarter two. There's so many things we're going to start sharing on public and news, but I cannot wait till we have that quarter two earnings call so that I can show people that while incremental advancement is what people should be looking at the moment, there are some really wonderful things happening now. So very positive as to my view on where we're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of direction and where you're headed, I know since March, as the overall small cap market began to correct, your company's stock has seen a steady decline in share price and currently sits below your original IPO price. What are the catalysts? You spoke about a few of them already, but what are those catalysts that your team is putting forward to really get this stock moving back in the right direction and getting people excited for that Q2, Q3, and beyond?
Yeah. I tell you, as the CEO of a publicly traded company, which is my first entrance into being a CEO of a publicly traded company, has been very hard for me because I take it very personal every day. I actually take these investor calls directly. I'll talk to them myself. I make myself extremely accessible and available. And while I share their frustration, I wish I had a crystal ball as to exactly why I could say why the price varies and so forth. And the only thing that I can do as a CEO is make sure I put my head down, focus on developing the organic business, but also make sure that we are properly focused and balanced in also our M&A activity. Like the acquisition of Apothecanna. Just to give you a description of how this strategically works, is that while, yes, we did acquire them, yes, they have performance metrics that they have to hit and that we're going to invest in them. But here's the interesting thing. When you identify an M&A target, it can't just be bolting on revenue. It has to be something more. Well, guess what? They are predominantly topicals. Now, we have been predominantly ingestibles and have had a very strong regulatory portfolio, which sets us up for the future. And that's one of the things that I'm very excited about new things happening in Congress and so on that are about to advance this. But we can literally install an entire ingestible program in Apothecanna. And why that's really important is half of their business is direct to consumer. It doesn't even rely on bricks and mortar retail. So we are going to be able to push out ingestible products very quickly. So strategically, how we're going to move this dial is by making these types of things happen. And as I said, Apothecanna is our second acquisition, not our last. Now, other things that we're doing, we have very strategic relationships now starting to move because of the early success in one of our key FDM retailers, Publix. We're now starting to move with other key FDM retailers. So, what we can do is build the business organically as well as, when appropriate, bolt on the acquisition targets through M&A activity to make sure that we are creating a well-diversified business that is strong in structure and foundation. And as we were joking about a minute ago, build it on a rock, not sand, to make sure that it's a foundation that'll stand the test of time. And for me, that is my whole focus every single day. And if we can build confidence in our shareholders to understand that's what we're doing, if they pay attention to the detail and not the emotions of the ebbs and flows of price, they'll see that what we're doing is actually correct.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. And I appreciate it. It came from the heart there. And look, what many investors need to realize is that, as I started this question off with, around mid-February or so, you're not alone in this. A lot of companies, very good companies who have been putting down the foundation, they're building on the rock, like you said, they are still having that correction because that happens in markets at times. But this is when you need to have your head down and start working and really get those milestones achieved, set new ones for the future. Acquisitions like Apothecanna, I think, will be very, very exciting. You explained that very well as to why investors should be excited about that. And I believe you've got a very bright future ahead of you with Hemp Fusion. So I appreciate the time that you've taken. I appreciate answering these questions and look forward to seeing that Q2. But more importantly, I look forward to seeing all the different things that you're doing with your company. So thank you again for your time.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to coming back again.
Absolutely. Take care now.
Thank you.